Hey everyone, and welcome. We're back with another deep dive. And this time, we're tackling something that I think everyone can relate to. Those sneaky ways that money just seems to disappear, like it just vanishes into thin air. We're calling them invisible money leaks, and we're going to explore how they affect us all. We've got some really interesting examples and trends from Canada, the US, India, and Dubai.
Yeah, and it really is about so much more than just, saving a few dollars here and there. It's really about understanding your financial picture. Like, where's your money actually going? And once you know that, you can use that information to work towards your goals, whatever those goals might be.
Exactly. And today, we're going to be uncovering the leaks that are so common, yet we just don't think about them that often. Like, I don't know about you, but I've definitely been guilty of that gym membership that I signed up for and then never use, or that free trial I forget to cancel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like these little things, they add up.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the first leaks that we really need to address is recurring subscriptions and memberships. It's like they're everywhere now, right?
They really are. I actually did a little personal finance audit recently, and I was shocked at how many streaming services I was paying for. I mean, I
Yeah.
can only watch so much TV.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, especially with how easy it is to auto-renew everything these days.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people just don't realize how much they're spending, on all these subscriptions. Like, there are studies that show, for example, in Canada, nearly half the population forget to cancel free trials, which
Yeah.
leads to, like, an average of $91 in charges every single month.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I bet that's not just happening in Canada, though, right?
You're absolutely right. We see similar trends globally. So, for instance, like in Dubai, right, they have this huge market for like all these high-end lifestyle apps, things that give you access to like fitness classes or special events. And people will sign up with the best of intentions, but then life gets in the way. You get busy. And the monthly fees, they just keep adding up.
Yeah. So, okay, we've got subscriptions. Those are a definite leak. What about those annoying bank fees? You know the ones I'm talking about, the ones that feel like they're designed to like sneak up on you.
Oh, those. Yeah, those are the worst. They're so frustrating. It's like they're designed to catch you off guard, especially things like overdraft fees. Did you know that just in 2024 alone, U.S. banks collected over $11 billion from overdraft fees?
Oh my gosh. That
Yeah.
is wild.
Yeah.
And it's not just overdraft fees either, right? Like there's ATM charges and foreign transaction fees. It feels like there's a fee for everything these days.
You're telling me. And the thing is, it's like this hidden tax on our finances. And what's even worse is that certain groups of people are disproportionately affected. Like in the US, 1 in 5 Americans gets hit with those overdraft fees regularly. And up in Canada, you have expats and people who travel a lot who often end up paying all these surprise charges for doing things like international transfers.
Ugh, it's like a never-ending cycle. And speaking of things that drain our bank accounts, we can't forget about the allure of impulse purchases. Like we've all been there, right? Scrolling through our phones and suddenly, bam,
Yeah.
something catches our eye.
It's so true. The psychology behind it is actually quite fascinating. Retailers have gotten so good at using things like limited time offers, or the flash sales that create a sense of urgency. They really know how to tap into our fear of missing out.
Oh yeah, they're good at that. And then of course there's that whole world of like targeted advertising. You know, the algorithms, they're tracking everything we do, everything we look at, and then they show us ads for things they know we'll probably buy.
Hmm.
It's almost like they can read our minds.
I know. It's crazy, right? And the impact it has on our wallets is it's huge. Some research suggests that the average household in the US spends something like $450 a month on impulse buys, which, when you think about it, that's over $5,000 a year.
That's a lot of money. Money that could be going towards other things like, I don't know, savings or investments.
Exactly.
And I feel like some parts of the world are even more susceptible to this kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Like take India, for instance. The e-commerce giants over there, companies like Flipkart and Amazon India, they've really mastered the art of the flash sale. And in Dubai, where, luxury shopping is such a big part of the culture, they've got these high-end malls that are using AI to create these super personalized ads, tempting shoppers to buy designer goods that they probably wouldn't have even considered before seeing the ad.
Wow. It makes you think about how much of what we spend is really intentional and how much is driven by like all these external factors. But okay, let's move on to something that can have even more serious consequences. high-interest debt.
Yeah, that's where things can get really scary. When you get caught in that cycle of high interest payments, it can feel almost impossible to break free. And things like credit card debt are a huge problem, especially in the US where, the average interest rate is a whopping 23%.
23%.
Yeah.
That's so high. It's no wonder so many people are struggling to pay off those credit card balances. And it's not just credit cards either, right?
Right. There are so many other predatory lending practices out there that are targeting people, especially vulnerable individuals. In Canada, for example, you have this whole payday loan industry that's preying on people with low incomes, charging these exorbitant interest rates, often exceeding 400%.
Oh my gosh, that's just awful. It's this vicious cycle that can be so hard to escape.
Yeah.
And it's not always about falling victim to, those predatory lenders either. Sometimes it's something much more subtle, lifestyle inflation.
Exactly. That's when our spending just naturally creeps up as our income rises. We kind of get used to a certain standard of living, and we just find ourselves constantly wanting more and more.
It's easy to fall into that trap, especially when you're surrounded by these messages that say, material possessions equal success and happiness.
Right. It's that whole keeping up with the Joneses thing. And it can show up in so many different ways, from like upgrading our phones every year to just eating out more often than cooking at home.
Yeah, and it's crazy how these little things can really add up over time. Like what might seem like a harmless treat today could actually turn into a major drain on your finances down the road.
Hmm.
But, it's not always about wanting more, is it? Sometimes it's just about like not appreciating what we already have.
You're so right. It's easy to take things for granted, especially in today's world. With instant gratification and everything being so readily available. It's like, for instance, in Canada, there are so many people who are upgrading their phones all the time, even when their old phones are perfectly fine.
Yeah, like we're programmed to just want the newest, shiniest thing, even if it doesn't really make our lives that much better.
And it's not just about material possessions either. Like, take Dubai, for example. There's a lot of pressure there, especially among expats, to lease these luxury cars, even if it means stretching their budgets way too thin.
It's like there's this unspoken pressure to project a certain image of success, even if it comes at a cost. And speaking of things that might be silently draining our finances, let's not forget about energy and utility waste.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's a big one. These are areas that are often overlooked, but they can have a real impact on our monthly bills.
Right. It's like we focus so much on those big expenses, but it's those little things that we do consistently that can really get us. Like, how many times have you left lights on in empty rooms or kept electronics plugged in when you're not even using them? They seem insignificant on their own, but it all adds up.
You're telling me it's those sneaky little vampire electronics that keep sucking power even when they're turned off. Like in the US, they estimate that the average household loses about $200 a year just from that.
It's crazy. Like, how much energy and money are we wasting without even realizing it? And I think these issues are probably even worse in certain parts of the world, like because of things like the climate or lifestyle factors. Like, for example, in India, they have these really densely populated cities like Mumbai and Delhi. And during the summer, everyone's running their air conditioners constantly. And that can actually increase electricity bills by as much as 30%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It really makes you think about how important it is to be mindful of our energy consumption, not just for our wallets, but for the environment too. But, okay, so we've talked about where we might be losing money. Now let's switch gears and talk about some things that might be working in our favor, but that we're not taking advantage of. Things like neglected financial tools.
You mean like things that could be working for us, but we're just not using them to their full potential? I'm intrigued.
Exactly. It's not always about cutting back.
No.
Sometimes it's about maximizing what we already have. For example, a lot of people in Canada are actually missing out on hundreds of dollars each year in unredeemed credit card points.
Wait, really? It's like leaving free money on the table.
It is. And there's also the issue of low savings rates and people not taking advantage of compound interest. A lot of people, particularly younger folks, underestimate the power of saving early and letting their money grow over time.
Yeah, I wish I had started saving and investing earlier. But hey, better late than never, right?
Exactly. And for our listeners in Dubai, where there's such a large expat community, it's important to understand all the different financial options available. Like, a lot of expats just keep their savings in these low-interest accounts when they could be exploring other things, like, Sharia-compliant investment platforms, for example.
Hold on. Can you explain what a Sharia-compliant platform is? I think some of our listeners might not be familiar with that term.
Oh, of course. So in Islamic finance, there are specific principles that prohibit certain types of investments, like things that involve interest or speculation. So Sharia-compliant platforms, they offer alternative investment avenues that are aligned with those Islamic values.
Oh, that's fascinating. It really highlights how important it is to understand the financial landscape in different parts of the world. And speaking of regional variations, I'm super excited to move on to our next segment, where we'll be getting hyper-local and diving into some specific trends and tips tailored to your region. But first, we're going to take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. So we spent some time talking about all these sneaky ways that money can slip away from us. But now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, what we can actually do to stop it. Like, how can we plug those leaks?
Exactly. I mean, it's not enough to just know about the problem, right? We need to take action. And the good news is there are proven strategies that you can use to regain control of your finances. And one of the most effective is actually automating your savings.
Automating savings. What do you mean by that?
So think of it like paying yourself first. Before you even have a chance to spend your money, a portion of it is automatically transferred to like your savings account or your investment portfolio.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So
Sure.
it becomes a habit. Like, you don't even have to think about it.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it. And there are some really great tools out there to help you do this. Like globally, there's this app called RiseVest that's gaining a lot of traction. It's got a really user-friendly interface and a variety of investment options. And then in India, there's FlexPay, which is great for automating savings and, managing expenses. You can even set savings goals and track your progress, which I think is really helpful.
Those sound like great resources. Now, what about dealing with existing debt, especially like those high-interest debts we talked about earlier, like credit cards? Those can be really overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. High interest debt can be a huge burden, but there are strategies to tackle it. And one of the most popular methods is called the debt avalanche method.
Debt avalanche. That sounds kind of intense.
It's not as scary as it sounds, I promise. Basically, what you do is you list out all your debts, right? From the highest interest rate to the lowest. And then you focus all your extra money on paying down the debt with the highest interest rate first, while, still making the minimum payments on the others.
So you're kind of like tackling the most expensive debt first to save money on interest in the long run. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a strategic approach, but, some people find it more motivating to pay off smaller debts first,
Oh.
just to kind of get some quick wins under their belt. That's what we call the debt snowball method.
Okay, so there are different approaches. It's good to have options. Now, going back to those pesky subscriptions, is there like anything we can do to prevent falling into that trap in the first place, aside from just like being more mindful, I guess?
Being mindful is definitely key, but technology can actually help us with this too. There are these really cool apps, subscription audit apps like Rocket Money in Canada or Truebill in the US that can be game changers.
Right, you mentioned those earlier, but I thought they were just for like canceling unused subscriptions. Do they do other things too?
Yeah. So they go beyond just cancellation. They actually track all your recurring payments and like help you identify potential savings. And get this. Some of them will even negotiate better rates for you with the providers.
Wait, really? Negotiate better rates? How does that even work?
So basically, they use their collective bargaining power to get discounts for their users. It's kind of like having, a personal financial advocate in your pocket.
That's incredible. I had no idea those apps were so powerful. Are there like similar apps available in other parts of the world?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like if you're in Dubai, there's Subby. It's a great option for managing subscriptions and recurring payments.
So many good resources.
Right.
Okay, I've got to ask. Beyond, using these cool tech tools, are there any like mindset shifts or behavioral changes we can make to prevent ourselves from falling into those impulse purchases? Like, I know we talked about it earlier, but are there any strategies?
Absolutely. One thing that can be really effective is implementing like a 48-hour cooling off period before you make any non-essential purchase over a certain amount, say like $50 or $100.
Okay, a cooling off period. So if I see something I really want, I should like wait 2 days before I buy it.
Precisely. It gives you time to like step back and really think about it. Do you really need it? Can you afford it? Oftentimes, that initial urge to buy will pass and you'll realize, you know what? I don't actually need this. Or if you still really want it after those 48 hours, then you can make a more informed decision.
That's such a good idea. It's like taking a break from the temptation. Are there any like specific questions I should be asking myself during that cooling off period?
Oh, for sure. Like ask yourself, do I really need this? Do I already own something similar? Could I find it for a better price somewhere else? Could I maybe wait for a sale? Or even better, could I use this money for something else, like paying off debt or saving for a goal?
Yeah, all, great questions. It's all about being like really mindful and intentional with our money. Out of all the strategies we've talked about today, is there one piece of advice that you would give to everyone, no matter where they live or what their financial situation is?
If I could give just one piece of advice, it would be this. Knowledge is power. The more you understand about your finances, the better equipped you'll be to make smart decisions and avoid those costly mistakes.
That's so true. It's like that for everything in life, isn't it?
It really is. So don't be afraid to ask questions, seek out financial education resources, or even consult with a financial advisor if you need to. There are tons of resources available.
I love that. It's all about taking charge of your financial well-being. And speaking of taking charge, I'm ready to dive into those region-specific tips and resources that you mentioned earlier. Let's get hyper-local. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about those sneaky money leaks, and we've learned about some really powerful ways to, stop them. Now, let's get specific and talk about what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Exactly. What works in one part of the world might not be the best approach in another. Every place has its own financial landscape, its own unique challenges and opportunities. So let's start with Canada, eh?
All right, fellow Canadians.
Sure.
One of the biggest hurdles we face is, well, the cost of housing. It's getting more and more expensive. And even though, CREA, the Canadian Real Estate Association, they're saying that home prices might go up a bit, those rising mortgage rates, because of those U.S. tariffs,
Yeah.
they can really put a strain on things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not just about the purchase price either. It's all the extra expenses that come with owning a home, like property taxes and insurance and, potential maintenance costs. It all adds up.
Oh, and don't forget about the home inspections. Like, those are super important, but they definitely add to the upfront costs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Better safe than sorry, right? Even if it means spending a few $100 to make sure everything's in order. But hey, there's some good news for Canadians. Besides those subscription auditing apps we talked about, there's this fantastic resource. It's called the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. They've got a ton of free information and tools to help you manage your money better.
That's a great tip. I'll have to check that out myself. All right, so let's head south to the U.S. now, where AI is becoming a bigger and bigger part of how we spend our money.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, those AI-powered apps like Clio can be really helpful for, predicting and curbing impulse buys. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the user, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you can get all the helpful notifications in the world, but you still got to actually listen to them and resist that temptation to, go on those online shopping sprees.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices and building good financial habits. And while we're talking about challenges, healthcare costs are a big one in the U.S., especially for retirees. Those Medicare premiums just keep going up.
Yeah, it's tough, especially for seniors who are living on a fixed income. What can they do to, manage those costs?
Well, planning is key, and looking into options like supplemental insurance or Medicare Advantage plans. The U.S. government's Medicare website is a great place to start. You can compare different plans and understand what's covered.
Great advice. Now let's hop over to India, where the rise of digital payments is changing everything.
Oh, yeah. It's been a huge shift. Platforms like PhonePe and Paytm have made, everyday transactions so convenient. But there's a downside to all that convenience, too.
Right. It's like the out of sight, out of mind thing.
Yeah.
When you're not physically handling cash, it's easier to overspend.
Exactly. So our listeners in India, it's important to set those spending limits within those apps and really track where your money's going. And speaking of potentially risky financial moves, we have to mention those gold loans that are so common in India.
Yeah, those can be really tempting, especially if you're facing financial hardship. But those high interest rates, they can really trap people in a cycle of debt.
They can. It's so important to look into other options like microfinance institutions and, government-backed loan schemes can be a huge help. And getting some financial counseling can make a big difference too.
Good point. Okay, our last stop is Dubai, a city known for, well, its glitz and glamour and, let's be honest, some pretty extravagant spending habits.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Dubai is all about those incredible shopping experiences and tax-free deals, but you have to remember, not everything is a bargain. Like those amazing gold deals, often they come with hidden customs charges and, those off-plan property investments. They can have these really high service fees that can eat away at your profits in the long run.
So it's always important to, like, read the fine print and do your research right
Right.
before making any big financial decisions.
Absolutely. Dubai's got a great financial services sector with tons of resources to help you navigate the market. The Dubai Financial Market website is a good place to start. They've got lots of information on investment opportunities.
Awesome. All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive into those sneaky money leaks, I want to leave our listeners with a thought to ponder.
Go for it.
Imagine, just imagine, that you've managed to plug all those leaks. You've reclaimed all that money that was just, slipping away without you even realizing it. What would you do with it? Would you travel the world? Pay off all your debt? Invest in your future? The possibilities are endless when you're in control of your finances.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Financial awareness gives you the power to make choices that line up with your values and goals. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We're always learning and growing, and that includes how we manage our money. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into this fascinating world of personal finance. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll catch you on our next deep dive.